Hello, everyone. I'm David Dubato, and this is the latest episode of The Dictators for Monday, April 27th, 2026. My partner, co host, and friend Jonathan Fink will probably not join us today. Uh, the last anyone saw of Jonathan, he was wandering around the streets of London and was heard quoting from Macbeth outside of 10 Downing Street before he was tackled and whisked away to an undisclosed location by the London Metropolitan Police. So hopefully, I'll find out the status of my dear friend Jonathan later, and if not, I will check in with the police and make sure they're taking good care of Jonathan and that he's in good spirits. In any event, like I said, he may or may not be here for the rest of this episode. Before I launch into the episode, and we've got two main topics to discuss today, I want to let everyone know to please join me here tomorrow on the No Delusion Zone here on YouTube for a live stream, as well as you can catch it on my Substack, protectingtherepublic.com. They'll both be live streams. They will both be streamed at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. UK time. And my very special guest is Ken Harbaugh. Ken is a former U.S. Navy pilot. He also has an extremely popular podcast, the Ken Harbaugh Show, and is one of the founders of a very, very popular social media platform, the Midas Touch. Again, I'm really happy to have Ken tomorrow. He's also a geopolitical analyst. He can be seen all over social media and the internet. I'm really, really glad to talk to Ken tomorrow. And again, I want you all, if you can, to tune in here, to scroll to the No Delusion Zone or protectingtherepublic.com at 10 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, April 28th, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. UK time for Ken Harbaugh. But today, the main focus, and really, I was just going to talk about Ukraine today. I was going to talk about the incredible job they've done, the inventions, the basically how they have redefined warfare, modern warfare. Ukraine has, and they are just incredible. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But I'd be stupid. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about one of the biggest stories of the day worldwide, something that happened Saturday night. And that was the shooting that took place in Washington, D.C. at the journalists' annual dinner with the President of the United States. And this took place in the Washington Hilton's ballroom. No one was injured, but there was apparently an attempt on the life of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. I am not going to get into all of the conspiracy theories that are now floating around concerning that incident. It is another one of these. Yeah, WTF. And there's been a lot of those recently, and there's going to be a lot more, especially with this administration. What I will say is that, as usual, the Trump administration hasn't made it any easier to not listen to some of the conspiracy theories. And I'm going to play something to you right now by one of my not favorite people, a short video clip from the White House black, as I call it, the spokesperson for Donald Trump, Caroline Leavitt, who very rarely, if ever, tells the truth. And when she does talk, it's fairly nauseating and obnoxious. But this is Caroline Leavitt speaking just before the dinner, the journalist dinner in Washington, D.C. on Saturday evening, paying special attention to the last few words, the statement that she made while being interviewed by a journalist, a far right-wing journalist. And again, this is just before the dinner. Caroline Leavitt, White House spokesperson.
And you are, as you know, this man is ready to rumble, is he not?
He is ready to rumble.
Uh-huh.
I will tell you,
This speech tonight will be classic Donald J. Trump. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room. So everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
I mean, I don't know what to say about that, except it's pretty weird. And of course, millions of words have already been written and spoken about this on social media. That video, that clip is on fire all over the internet, and it should be. Just before this dinner, where shots were fired, and I'm going to play another clip about that in just a moment, the White House spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt, allegedly jokingly, says that shots will be, quote, there will be some shots fired tonight, quote, from Caroline Leavitt. And sure enough, just a little while later, there were some shots fired. I'm not going to speculate on what that means. You can speculate. You can tell me what you think if you want to in the comments now or later. Again, there's enough conspiracy theories out there and people opining, speculating, guessing on what happened that night, whether or not she was giving a very unsubtle tip towards what was going to happen in just a little while. But that's there for you to see and hear. So, you make of it as you will. The only other clip I'm going to play about that incident, the shooting incident over the weekend in Washington, was a clip of the actual shooter in this case that was posted by Donald J. Trump himself afterwards on his infamous Truth Social. It's less than a minute. I think it's 42 seconds long. And I'll comment about that clip afterwards, but watch this.
President Trump just posted what appears to be the first surveillance video of the shooting incident at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. In the video, you can see a man sprint through the security screening area. Multiple agents draw their weapons in the direction the man just took off, and then a flood of agents head in that direction. The president also posted these pictures he says are of the suspect in custody on the ground. He's being described as a 31-year-old man. The president says that this suspect is from California, lives in an apartment, and that the president says is believed to be a lone wolf shooter. Officials say one Secret Service agent was shot at close range but is in good spirits and has spoken with the president. The suspect is being treated at a hospital for his injuries. The president says that we will learn very soon more about his motives.
Okay, as I said, I'll give some brief comments about that. And again, I'm not going to get into any conspiracy theories. I'm just not going to do it. It's a waste of time. It won't go anywhere. There's certainly enough pundits and analysts and just people all over the internet and social media that are going to do that, have been doing that, and will continue to do that. So you don't need me to add my guesses to all of that. What I will say, a few things actually on that. Right after this happened, within, I think it was 7 minutes, both Donald Trump and then, of course, his cult of bootlickers posted all over the internet that this shooting incident proves the need for a new White House ballroom. And regarding that, I have to post this again. WTF? WT blank and F. What does this shooting incident have to do with a new White House ballroom? Obviously nothing, unless you might think that it's just further obfuscation, further diversion away from the Epstein files. I think pretty much everything that happens now that comes from the White House or any of the cult bootlickers around the White House, in the U.S. Congress, MAGA, anything that comes out of their mouths or that they write and post has to do with diverting from the Epstein files. Whether this insane lunatic post immediately after the shooting about the need that this proves the need for a White House ballroom was part of that diversion away from the Epstein files, who knows? They're all nuts. They're all part of a cult. And anyone that keeps trying to figure out the mind of Donald Trump tries to figure out, try to decide what he really means is themselves insane. Stop wasting your time. I gave up a long time ago. However, one thing that that clip shows me, somebody that's worked in law enforcement and military security, security sucked. The security was horrendous. Why do I say that? I'll point out some obvious things. This incident, meaning the dinner, the Washington dinner of the journalists, took place, was located in the Washington Hilton in their large ballroom. This individual that you just saw face down, well, running through the outer ring of security and then face down in that clip, was staying at the same hotel as the dinner. He was checked in there. Yet he apparently, allegedly, was able to sneak in a dismantled rifle in a suitcase that he then assembled in his room, brought it down to the area that you just saw, where he charged with this rifle, trying to get through security into the ballroom before he was tackled. Apparently, one or more shots were fired, because it seems that I believe it was a Secret Service agent, although it might have been another member of law enforcement, was struck by one of the rounds. I don't have clarity on that yet, but that is what is being reported. However, the fact that this individual got within, I don't know how many meters of the president, got into what is at least the secondary or the second ring of security around the president of the United States, and the other two individuals that would have taken over to him the line of succession, the speaker of the vice president, first of all, and then the speaker of the House. The fact that this idiot, this alleged shooter, got within the second ring, and possibly the first, that he got so close to the leaders, the absolute top leadership of the United States of America, is disgraceful. It's just disgraceful. And I don't want to hear about any apologies for the Secret Service. They have committed so many security disasters in the last few years that that's unbelievable. And look, I want to say right now that, as you know, anybody that watches me, I am not a fan of Donald Trump or MAGA or any currently serving Republican member of the government. But that is irrelevant. I hate political violence. I do not support political violence in any way, shape, or form. And when someone tries to assassinate the president of the United States, that is an attack on us all. In fact, Ken Harbaugh, who's going to be with me tomorrow, just said on his podcast, in an interview with Steve Schmidt from The Warning, that he feels the same way, that an attack on the president, even if it's Donald Trump, is an attack on us all. Because as loathsome as he may be, he is the president of the United States. That is an office. It is an institution. So anyone trying to take him out is trying to take us out. Because guess what, folks? He will not always be in that office. Hopefully not very long at all. But the fact of the matter is, someone else, some other man or woman, will be the president of the United States, hopefully very, very soon. And I don't want them to be assassinated or shot or attacked either. The institution of the president of the United States, the office of the president of the United States, must be inviolate. It doesn't matter what party currently holds that office or who currently controls the government, the U.S. Congress, the House, or the Senate. It's irrelevant. Political violence in this country, in my country, the United States of America, which is still hanging on as a democracy, as a constitutional republic, political violence has no place in this country, in my country. It sucks. And I just can't say enough about the fact that I do not support in any way, shape, or form what allegedly happened over the weekend at this dinner, the shots that were fired and the attempt made on the life of the president of the United States. So again, I'm just going to say that the security around the president has been recently and still is a disgrace. I hope there will be some real thorough after action reports about this. I'm sure there will, but I hope they're very, very thorough and that several people from the top on down get fired. And really, that's all I can say about that incident, the journalist dinner, the shooting at the dinner in Washington, D.C. And what I want to do now is move on to the original focus of this live stream, which was going to be and still is Ukraine. The incredible advances, how Ukraine has almost single-handedly transformed the modern battlefield. They have taken it from what really started out as a World War I trench warfare type of battlefield, where literally trenches were drawn in eastern Ukraine in the Donbass, and advances were made in meters, in feet and meters and yards, not in miles. It was stagnant. The casualty count was horrendous on both sides. Armor was being thrown at it, armor that some of which was donated by the United States and NATO powers, European powers, which initially did some good. But then as Russia developed its drones, its drone warfare, the utility of armor in the war in Ukraine began to be less and less useful, less and less successful. What had been the queen or the king of battle until that point, including the very best heavy tanks of the United States and the European powers, were blown up. They were themselves vulnerable to drones, to unmanned weapons platforms. And for a time, the Russians held sway with that. They learned from their mistakes. Well, guess what? The Ukrainians learned from their mistakes too. And they adapted far better, far faster, and took far more advantage of the unmanned platforms, aerial platforms, but actually they now have developed aerial, land-based, and sea-based drones. And they're the best in the world. They are the best in the world at drones and anti-drone platforms. And I'm going to play a couple of clips here about that. What's going on here. This particular clip actually is about how the Ukrainians have advanced unmanned aerial or drone warfare so much that they are now giving away or hopefully selling their expertise to other countries, not just NATO, but in this clip, you'll see where else the Ukrainians are offering their expertise in drone and anti-drone warfare.
Cheap and easy to launch, Iranian-developed Shahed drones are among the deadliest weapons in Tehran's arsenal. They've also been used extensively by Russia against Ukraine. Now, Kyiv's hard-won anti-drone expertise is proving to be its most valuable asset. At the request of the White House, Kyiv is sending teams of drone specialists to the Middle East. According to Volodymyr Zelensky, 11 countries have asked Ukraine for assistance. 3 teams have been deployed so far to Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia.
Without our experience, it will be very difficult for the Gulf region, the entire Middle East, and partners in Europe and America to protect themselves. We are ready to help those who help us.
Ukrainian expertise offers a useful form of leverage for Zelensky, who has clearly stated he expects assistance in return and hopes to trade for defense systems Ukraine is lacking.
We have a deficit of PAC-3, yes. If we're talking about weapons that we're short of, then it is PAC-3 missiles. If they give them to us, then we will give them our interceptors. This is an equivalent exchange.
Kyiv has been forced to innovate to deal with Shahed drones, as traditional defense systems proved too expensive.
You can't shoot down Shaheds with missiles that cost $5 million each. No economy in the world can afford that. We can also teach them how to distinguish different types of targets when there's a clutter of information on the radar.
Expertise that was developed due to necessity. Moscow has launched more than 60,000 Shahed drone attacks against Ukraine in nightly barrages.
As I said, Ukraine had to learn the hard way. They had to learn from the constant, deadly, and inhumane drone barrages that were sent against them by Russia. They had to watch, sometimes helplessly, as hundreds, sometimes thousands of drones, along with missiles and other weapons, destroyed their infrastructure, their energy infrastructure, sometimes apartments, sometimes schools, nurseries, libraries, malls, and so forth. And at the beginning of the war and throughout the middle part of the war, they weren't helpless, but they certainly weren't able to shoot down all of these drones. But they learned. Now they are employing some incredibly cheap but effective anti-drone drones. And it's kicking the ass of the Russians. So watch this next short clip.
A Patriot missile costs $3 million. The drone it's shooting down costs $35,000. Ukraine figured out a better way. This week, they're bringing it to the Gulf. President Zelensky announced that 3 fully equipped Ukrainian teams are deploying this week to Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Their mission, teach the Gulf how to hunt Iranian drones the way Ukraine learned how to hunt them over Kyiv. I've watched this evolution with my own eyes, literally from the window of my hotel room in Kyiv. The tracer fire of truck-mounted machine guns firing into the night sky. Soldiers waiting for a Shahed to fly almost directly overhead. They had to be in the right place at the right time. Short range, visual range. It worked, but it didn't scale. In Kyiv alone, they could never have enough teams with trucks to protect everyone and everything. The result, critical infrastructure regularly clobbered. The breakthrough is this. Instead of waiting for a drone to come to you, you send a drone to hunt it. Interceptor drones in the parlance. $3,000 to $5,000 each. Faster than a Shahed, and they chase. Today, 70% of Shahed drones downed around Kyiv are killed this way. The same Iranian drones terrorizing this region have been terrorizing Ukraine for years. Ukraine learned to stop them the hard way. The Gulf is about to get the shortcut. Jason Bellini, Scripps News Group, Tel Aviv, Israel.
So there you have it. Ukraine, who was the victim for years of Russian drone warfare, who watched their own cities and their own people suffer, and in many cases die, their energy infrastructure be destroyed, and having their own people suffer throughout very cold, dark winters. Well, they've turned the tables now. Not only are they, as this last clip showed you, employing very cheap but very efficient and deadly drones against the Russian drones, some of them Iranian drones, but they are also selling that expertise to other countries, not only NATO, but as it showed earlier in another clip, to the Middle East. And what that's going to do, aside from raising the prestige of Ukraine, who I've said now is the leader of the democratic world, it's going to bring in some badly needed hard currency, some revenue from the oil-rich Middle Eastern states that are going to pay for the expertise of Ukraine. And they should. And they should. It's been hard-earned. This expertise doesn't come easy. Let me just read something here before I get to another clip about the drones. On the night of April 25th and 26th, just a day or so ago, Ukrainian forces struck the Yaroslav oil refinery, one of Russia's major fuel processing facilities, causing a fire. The plant has an annual capacity of about 15 million tons and produces gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. And it talks about further, these drone operations are increasingly reaching deep into Russia's rear, including a strike in Chelyabinsk, more than 1,800 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. So again, a drone attack struck Russia. more than 1,800 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, and it's just getting further. They have struck many targets now in the vicinity of Moscow, recently Ukraine, the Ural Mountains, of course, all over Crimea and southern Russia. They have developed, as I said, not only just aerial drones and anti-drone warfare platforms, but land-based drones. Let me just show you an image here of one of those. This is a Ukrainian combat drone. Recently, there's been several stories in the media about how Russian troops are surrendering to these robots, to these unmanned infantry weapons platforms that are being deployed by the Ukrainian military. Russians are holding up signs saying, "We surrender" to these unmanned infantry vehicles. Here's another shot of them loading one of these unmanned infantry fighting vehicles onto the back of a pickup. These have become very, very successful, and they are developing even more sophisticated and deadly models of these infantry fighting vehicles. And I just want to play one last clip here, if I may. And this has to do with, I'm really, really happy. Actually, I have to say, I'm happy that the Ukrainians have developed their drone warfare to the point where they, after years of suffering, are able to enjoy deploying, seeking out Russian troops with these new deadly unmanned weapons platforms and just demolishing the Russian troops. So I'm going to play, this is the last clip I'm going to play about this. This has to do with with the warfare, the deadly drone warfare that the Ukrainians are employing against the Russian invaders. So this is about a 2-minute clip. So sit back and watch this, please.
There's a new deadly weapon in the Ukraine war, and it's proving highly effective. It's called a fiber optic drone. It's not wireless, but connects by a long cable to its pilot, stretching many miles. Unlike wireless drones, these wired versions are immune to electronic interference, which takes out a large portion of the drones in Ukraine. This means that wired drones are almost impossible to defend against. You can see how Ukrainian troops fired multiple shots at this incoming Russian drone without success. A wired connection means pilots are also working with much higher video quality, which lets them perform more complicated maneuvers, as this Ukrainian footage shows. There are a few drawbacks. Wired drones have a short range of 10 to 15 kilometers compared with wireless ones, which can sometimes be controlled tens of kilometers away. And occasionally they can get caught on obstacles. Great swathes of the battlefield now look like this. These drones may be a new weapon, but wire-guided missiles like these have been a mainstay of anti-tank warfare since the Cold War. The fiber optic versions took off in late 2024, when Russia began deploying them in large numbers in Ukraine. They played a big part in its successful counter-offensive in Kursk in March 2025, and are now being deployed in eastern Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine has stepped up its own production. A factory in Kyiv is increasing manufacturing of these new drones from 600 a month to an expected 10,000 by the end of summer 2025. The main challenge is sourcing the fiber optic cable. China dominates the market, but Ukraine is ramping up efforts to produce its own. With such a powerful weapon on the battlefield, both Ukraine and Russia are trying new ways of stopping fiber optic drones. Watch how this Ukrainian drone was deployed to blow up an incoming Russian drone attack. Tanks have been dressed up with anti-drone material, and both sides are constructing nets over key roads and positions. But as this video shows, wired drones can still find ways through these defenses. Eventually, laser weapons could be deployed that could shoot projectiles out of the air. That would really shake up the Ukrainian arms race. Despite the grind of war, both sides are continuing to innovate to gain a crucial advantage.
And as I've said many times before, Ukraine holds all the cards, not Russia. Russia never did. but Ukraine seriously now actually does hold all the cards. I could not be more proud of the Ukrainians, not just the Ukrainian civilians, the population, but of their leadership and obviously of their military and their intelligence services. They are there's something else. And I'm just going to read one last line here about what I'm talking about and what I've discussed in this video. As Ukraine expands domestic drone production, many experts expect more frequent and larger scale strikes targeting Russia's economic and military capabilities. And you can be sure about that. Their strategy of weakening and hitting Russia's oil and gas refineries and production centers and pipelines is going to continue. They're going to drain the hell out of Russia's oil production and their distribution to the point that even if the price of oil keeps going up, it's not going to matter because if they can't refine it, if they can't send it along pipelines, if they can't export it, it's not going to do them any good. And as you may or may not know, the Russian economy is in the toilet and it's getting worse. And what Ukraine is doing is just pushing it along that much further. And I'm going to have to end on that note. Ukraine, they've turned it around. They are now, as I've said, actually in other podcasts in the past, Ukraine right now is the torch bearer. They are the leaders of Western democracy. They just are. They have been for a while. America, if it ever was, has ceded that position to Ukraine. And I really mean that, and I couldn't be prouder. So that's it for today. I'm going to make a call in a little while, find out how Jonathan is doing, if he's been released yet, if he's still quoting Macbeth, or if he's moved on, perhaps to King Lear. I'm not sure. So thank you all for joining me. And again, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. UK time for Ken Harbaugh here on YouTube on the No Delusion Zone live stream. You don't want to miss it. Ken is an incredible individual. So please check it out tomorrow. And until then, you all take care, stay safe, and stay sane.